friends. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Success Factor podcast. I'm the host, Trent Christensen. In this episode, I interview Liam Naden. He was actually on his yacht chilling over in Italy while I had this interview with him. We had a lot of amazing conversations. He had a lot of insights. Overall, he is a neurohacker. He is a neuro kind of relationship and science and experienced and I don't know, he's just an overall interesting guy. He's got amazing things to say and some amazing experiences. I love his overall mantras is behind every problem is fear. So if you remove the fear, you remove the problem. It actually is so simple. So many people focus on fear. In this episode, we get into that and we talk about fear. And he has such amazing, rags to riches type stories himself. At one point, he was even homeless. He was living on his elder mother's couch. He hit rock bottom and he crawled his way out. And now he's chilling on a yacht off the coast of Italy. And he's not embracing fear. He's not letting it in his life. He's eliminating it so that he can focus on what really matters. And that's himself and his growth and his experiences and his development. And behind every one of those opportunities in life is an opportunity to grow, whether it's positive or negative. Don't fear anything. Everything has an opportunity for you to learn and grow. And I love this episode with Liam. I'm excited for you to check it out. Please tune in and like, rate, and subscribe, or even share this episode with as many people as you can. Share the love with Liam, share the love with the show. And for me, we all would appreciate it. And we certainly appreciate you checking out the show and listening. So thank you. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. And yourself?
I'm doing pretty good. If I understand correctly, Liam, you're sitting on a yacht in the channels in like the French channels. Am I understanding this correctly?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm actually in the Champagne region at the moment, which is nice.
That's crazy. That's crazy, man. How long have you been there?
Or on the boat or in France?
I've been on both. Let's go with both.
Well, I've been on a boat for about 7 years now. And wow. In France, we've been here for a couple of months, I think. It's cruising around.
That's pretty cool. Just yourself, yeah. Or do you have like a crew?
Oh, my partner.
Okay.
No, myself and my partner. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Great life.
Oh, you're living it up. That's wonderful. Is that your go-to place? I mean, do you have I'm assuming you've toured around a little bit, but is the French area, the wine country, kind of your go-to place, or do you go to some other desired places?
We basically just go wherever we feel like. I mean, we've traveled over the last 7 years in about 15 countries, so we don't have a permanent base. We just go from one place to the next every few days or weeks, or well, usually days.
Yeah.
Well, when we feel like moving on, we do.
Good for you. That is so great.
Yeah. True nomad.
Yeah, you are a true nomad. That's for sure. How do you get like a Wi-Fi or internet? Do you have like a satellite account or something?
No, internet in Europe's pretty good. We just sign up with local providers in each country, and it works out pretty well. Internet's good over here.
Yeah, wow. So when you're out on the boat, is it just that it's broadcasting strong enough from the shore, or you're docked at the shore, or do you take like a jetty in or a dinghy into the shore or docks? Like how do you logistically park your boat?
Oh, okay. Well, in the rivers and canals, I mean, there are plenty of places to tie up, and just on the shore alongside, find places. Yeah, so we just do that.
So you'll have no access or no issue with access to internet by doing that because you're close to this.
No, we're inland as well, so anywhere there's towns everywhere. It's not very remote. Yeah. No, it works out perfectly. Yeah.
That's really good. Do you find that it's becoming more expensive there with cost of petroleum, gas, oil, everything going up, do you find that you have to adjust to that, or is that kind of something you budget for anyways?
Well, I'm sure if you know a little bit about my background and the work I do, it's about using your brain the right way. And
Yeah.
one of the things you do when you use your brain the right way is you never think about that sort of stuff. You just, I have no idea what the price of fuel is, or whether it's up or down. To be honest, it's just not something that attracts my attention. Too busy enjoying things. So we just do whatever comes up, you know.
I
And
love it. Yeah, I love it. We're going to have to talk. I want to talk more about that. But before we get into what you're doing today, the neurostate rebalancing, I've read up on that. Um, I have a lot of questions about it. I have a lot of questions about your background. Your story seems interesting and compelling. And some of the things that you talked about, like being homeless, after losing many of your businesses or wealth or success, you also found yourself being homeless. So I want to talk about that too.
okay.
So let's go back in time, if we could, and talk about your different businesses that you had before hitting rock bottom. What were you doing? What were some of the businesses, some of the success you experienced before hitting rock bottom?
Right. Well, I've basically been an entrepreneur most of my adult life, and had a whole succession of businesses, from everything from a wine importing and retail business to uh, a backpacker hostel. These were all in New Zealand, by the way, or most of them, which is where I come from. And yes, I did lose everything. Just before that, I had an interest in a horse trekking business, funnily enough, where we had horses show people around the South Island of New Zealand, and several other smaller businesses as well at the same time. So I've done lots of different things. And since then, I've been doing a few different things as well, although primarily now I'm in the coaching area, and researching and helping people figure out all this stuff about how we really get the results we do.
When did you leave New Zealand?
I left New Zealand about 7 years ago.
So what happened with these different ventures that caused you to lose it all and hit rock bottom? Like, what caused the rock bottom to happen?
Well, without getting into too much of the gory detail, because it's a little bit sensitive for various parties, not
Yeah.
necessarily just myself, but essentially it came down to having made a number of bad decisions. And I think this is one of the things now why I help entrepreneurs in particular to realize that often the problems we have in our life are the result of making decisions we should never have made. And if we weren't in a state of stress or fear or pressure, that we wouldn't have made those decisions. So, but for me, it was really a culmination of a few decisions that, in hindsight, and even at the time, I realized were probably not the right things to be doing. And they'd all sort of built up to a point where it was unsustainable, and it all just sort of collapsed.
What were
That's
some
really
of
the gist of it.
those? Yeah, I'm going to pry on that, but what were some of the decisions or, some of the decisions that you made at the time that in hindsight was not a good decision that contributed to you losing it all?
Well, I think in summary, how I could summarize what the decisions were trying to keep adding to what I had, without being happy with what I had, and trying to force more newer parts of my businesses to work. I don't know if that makes sense, but going after more when it wasn't the right thing. So adding parts to my business, taking on new other businesses, buying a couple of businesses that I shouldn't have bought that really didn't work, and it was taking on a couple of staff members who weren't appropriate, who weren't suitable for the role.
Mm-hmm.
That's really the gist of it. It's if that makes sense. It's business decisions, financial decisions that,
Yeah.
without, as I say, I can't get into too much detail because it's a little bit of a sensitive topic legally.
Yeah, I hear you. That's fine. I can understand that and
Yeah.
appreciate it. So, in other words, another way to look at it would be you might have leveraged yourself too much, and you might have made some poor decisions that how do I say this? You made some poor decisions that, from a business perspective or investment perspective, overall let you go down some losses or some, maybe lawsuits or something. But overall, the focus on growth contributed to making some bad decisions that, in hindsight, you shouldn't have from a business perspective. Something like that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Now, when did you wake up? What do you remember the point in time when you woke up and said, "Oh crap, I don't have anything left. Like, what am I going to do?" Do you remember that point in time?
Well, of course, when you're going through that sort of experience, you don't have a lot of time to think. You're really in reaction state because it seems like things are happening outside of you, out of your control. Because if they were within your control, you probably wouldn't be in that situation. So it was probably well after the fact that I did become homeless, I did become penniless, but I had to move back in to live with my elderly mother, who had a small apartment in a different city, the city I was brought up in, but I hadn't been back there for many years. And I had to move into her apartment and sleep on the sofa in her living room. And I think it was then that it struck me that not only had I lost everything, well, several things struck me. Firstly, the reality that I'd lost everything. Secondly, that I couldn't figure out a way to get out of the situation. I felt that I had no prospects because, as well as losing everything, I had no idea on what to do next, how to earn any money or get myself back on my feet. And I think it's that combination that makes you realize that, why did this happen to me? Because I've spent my life not only as an entrepreneur learning and working hard to grow businesses, but I also had spent my life studying success. I was a sort of a self-help, personal development, spirituality, whatever, junkie, if you like. And I'd been to seminars and read books and done all of these things. And it hit me, why is it I know about goal setting, taking control of your life, controlling your thoughts, changing your beliefs, doing all these things, and yet here I am, not only with nothing, but unable to figure out what to do next, feeling totally powerless.
Wow. I mean, that's incredibly stressful position to be in. And, I can't relate per se, but I do have some questions. So was this New Zealand? Were you in
Yes.
New Zealand? Okay. Yeah. So and roughly how old were you? Were you young? Were you middle age or?
I was in my mid-40s.
Okay. Wow. All right. So you had plenty of experience, plenty of time to build up these businesses, but I mean, it's
plenty of time to build up my knowledge as well on how not to get into trouble.
Exactly. Now, when you were with your mom at the time and you had this realization where you were at, how did you end up homeless? Like, what happened there?
Well, as I say, I'd lost everything. So the only option I had was to go home to mum.
Got it.
Yeah, I had nowhere else to go.
You weren't per se living on the streets, but you were back with your elderly mother with no income, no money, living off of your elderly mother, basically.
Yeah, she even had to pay for my food. It was that bad.
Wow. So you literally were homeless, taken in by your elderly mother.
Yes. Yeah.
I bet that experience has taught you a lot and gave you the perspective and humility that was needed to help you get to the point where you are today. So looking back on that, do you remember what triggered with you to create new motivation or new desire to go out and give life, business, income making another shot?
Absolutely, and it's the not only the foundation of everything I do now in terms of what I teach and how I coach people, um, but what I realized, it was something completely different to the way I'd been doing things up until then. And it wasn't really a question of becoming motivated again. And in fact, it was the exact opposite. And it sounds strange, but when I back engineered what I'd done to rebuild my life, I realized this is the way we work and operate as human beings. This is the way we're designed. And all of that stuff that I'd been doing, pushing, struggling, setting goals, trying to figure stuff out, trying to achieve more, trying to learn more, all of those things are not the way we're supposed to live. They're not the way we're biologically designed to create a successful life. So I actually did the opposite of getting motivated. And the opposite of getting motivated is what is the key to everything, and that is actually letting go and saying, I don't know the answer. I can't figure this out. I've got no clue on what to do. And that is how when you do that, your brain actually switches, and it's a different part of you. I'm sure we're going to talk about this, but
Oh yeah,
that's the part of you that actually creates your life and gives you not only what you want, but what you're supposed to be what you're supposed to have to be really happy and successful. It doesn't come from pushing and struggle. And this was a huge realization for me and I had to lose everything to learn that lesson, which I'm really glad I did. And I'm not suggesting that everybody goes out and loses everything to learn this lesson, but it's the absolute key to getting what we want. And that's why now I'm really helping people realize that all of the struggle, the stress, the strain, the pushing, the pressure, that's not getting us anywhere. It's not getting you anywhere. So why not try a different approach and allow something else, a different part of you, to do the work? That's what I did, and that's what I realized created all of the results that I have now.
So
in a much better way.
I love that. And we're going to get into that. Trust me. Back to this point in time though, how did you make this realization? Like, what was it that you either researched, maybe a friend or a coach helped you with, but how did you come up with that different way of thinking and gaining that deep inherent perspective that helped you grow out of that dark place you were in?
Well, of course, I didn't realize it at the time. It was out of necessity. I had to do that because I couldn't think of anything else. All of my, if you like, energy had become exhausted in trying to figure it out. And I racked my brains through all of the things that I'd studied and all of my experience trying to figure out what to do. But I didn't come up with any answers. Things got worse. So it was out of necessity that I made this switch to just saying, right, I give up. I don't know what to do. I don't know what I want even. I can't figure any of the stuff out. But it was only later, when after my life started to get a lot better and get back on track, and when it was going a lot better than it had previously, because I was starting to do things I really enjoyed. I was starting to attract me business opportunities to make money and do things that I loved. And I was doing everything in a much easier and more enjoyable way without the pushing, the struggle, the stress, and the problems. It was only then that I said to myself, I need to figure out what I'm doing differently, because this is working. Whatever this is working. Whereas it hadn't been working before, because all of the stress and the struggle wasn't doing me any good. Mm-hmm. And so that's when I really back engineered to figure out what I'd been doing in hindsight, what I was doing, because I wanted to make sure I didn't stop doing it. Yeah. And that I did more of it. I didn't want to go back to the old life of stress and struggle and making wrong decisions and possibly ending up in the same situation again.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'll keep going. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, and when I got into starting to help coach other people, particularly in the marriage and relationships area, which is what I still do a lot of, and what I primarily was doing when I got going again, I noticed the difference in results that some people got. Again, I wanted to figure out the difference why some people managed to achieve their outcome, which was to heal their marriage in this instance, and other people weren't able to. And I looked at it and I thought, it's not a question of motivation or information. Everybody was motivated. Everybody had lots of information. That didn't seem to make the difference. And all of these things were clues, if you like, as to how things really work, how I'd really worked it out. And when I started to teach other people these ideas, they were getting much better results as well. So that's the exciting part.
What was your first glimpse of success after living with your mom and hitting rock bottom, and you started to see some light at the end of the tunnel? What was that first beam of light that you started to realize that, hey, this is possible, this is working, I need to continue this? What was it?
I don't know if there was an initial first beam of light, because when you're in a fairly dark place, you're not really aware of how things are improving. And I think this is what I've noticed coaching people as well. Often when people are struggling, they find it difficult. And again, it's to do with the way the brain works, actually, but they find it difficult to see what's working and what's going right with their life. So I can't recall there was a specific moment or a specific time when I suddenly thought, aha, things are suddenly getting better. But I think it's a gradual thing. And then you look back and you think, actually, things are a lot better than they used to be when I really think about it. So it's like a sort of a snowball effect, if you like.
How did you start making money? I mean, you had to have gotten a job or something to be able to go and, take care of your own bills, your own food expenses, and then start to work on freeing your mind and your spirit and be able to explore some of these principles that you've later developed into a coaching program. Like what were you doing for income?
Well, I started to do really part-time, several different things in terms of commission selling of different products, websites. Okay. I did telemarketing for a wine company, actually, or several wine companies, because I used to be in the wine business, retail business. So there were a number of little small things that all sort of added up to the fact that I could get enough money to move out from my mother's sofa. So it was like gradual little opportunities that came along, and I thought, I didn't really think, but I knew that's not ideal, but it's a start. Mm-hmm. There's something I can do right now. There's somebody who has a need that I can fulfill, and it's not sexy, it's not great, it's not part of my overall ideal life plan. Right, but here's an opportunity to get started. And again, I think this was a lesson for me, and it's a lesson for how our brain works, is that you're not supposed to figure out the next 20 steps. You're supposed to know only the next step, and you're supposed to grab that and take it, and not think about where that might lead. And is this leading me in the right direction? Yeah. You need to access that part of your brain that shows you the opportunity, gets you to act on it, and just take that next step. And it was a huge lesson for me, because life becomes the way it should be, a series of twists and turns on an adventure where you can't see where the end is. The part of your brain that operates your life can see the end, but you just take the journey, following each step, each clue, if you like. And that's what I did. And I think I
love that. The reason why I love that is because through the down times in life, through the darkness, through the hitting rock bottom, you're able to open up to feedback, other ways, other ideas, other suggestions. You humble yourself. You admit to yourself that you don't know everything and you didn't get everything right. And so you kind of re-engineer the way of thinking about the future. And that's what I love about it, is because you totally did all of that. And it also is just the idea of just keep swimming, like, Dory and Nemo movie. You just got to keep going in life. You have to just worry about what foot is going to go in front of the other one next and continue down that path. Whatever path it is, focus at your feet, taking one step at a time. And you had to go and get a job. You had to go and make something work. And these steps of just keep moving and growing helped you crawl yourself out of this dark position you were in and come up with some amazing insights and amazing perspectives that you now are helping other people with. I love it, because through hitting rock bottom, you're able to recreate an amazing being as you climb yourself through that. So many people have done that. So many people have experienced that. And this is like a typical success story. It usually involves someone hitting rock bottom. And that's what I like about it.
Absolutely. And the clue is, as you just said, that so many people have done this and realized, like I did, it was the best thing that ever happened. And it was the key to future success. So one of the things I've actually studied is, why is that? Why is it that people use a rock, or what happens when people hit rock bottom that enables them to create much greater success in the future? And the fascinating thing is, this is all about how our brain works. And by having that experience, you actually are forced, if you like, to switch your brain into a different gear. And I've actually created a process called neurostate rebalancing, which enables people to switch to that gear without having to have the experience of losing everything. But it really is fascinating how it works, that there is a link between losing everything and having to start all over again, but in a different way, where something takes over, something takes you to even greater success than you had. And it's inevitable that you have to be doing something differently, because you've tried you only hit rock bottom when you've tried absolutely everything that you have, that you know, and none of it works, because nobody wants to hit rock bottom. So you're out of resources when you hit rock bottom. And that's the point when you realize that the resources you think you had are not who you are. And so when you recreate, you build them from a different place, which probably sounds a bit vague, but I'm sure we'll get into explaining what all that means.
Well, I want to focus on the neurostate rebalancing. What is it exactly, and how did you come up with it?
What neurostate rebalancing is, as the name suggests, it's about rebalancing your neurostate, neuro being your brain. So maybe we could get in at some point I can give you an explanation of what my research has taught me about how our brain operates.
Yeah, just high level touch on that too.
Sure. Okay. Well, when I lost everything, and when I started to try to figure out what I was doing differently, I asked the obvious question: who am I really, and what am I doing here? Because something's working, and I don't know what it is. So who am I? And of course, there have been philosophers, scientists, people all throughout history trying to answer that question, who am I? But I took it right back to basics. And I thought, well, there's one thing everybody can agree on, and that is we're biological. We have a biological aspect to our life. It might not be all who we are, but we've all got a body. So if we've got a body and we live in a physical world, there must be some purpose for our body and for our physical existence. And science teaches us that there is, in fact, a purpose for all life, including human life, and that purpose is to create more life. In other words, to not only survive, but to thrive, so that you enable the species to which you're a part of, you play your part for that to continue. So what comes from that logically is the truth that the best way you can survive is by being at your best. And that means at your best physically, but it also means that you're being at your best mentally and emotionally. Now, when you're physically at your best, your body functions perfectly. You're better able to fight off attackers or disease. You heal faster from disease, so you survive better physically. And when you're at your best mentally and emotionally, you're more creative, you're more resourceful, you're at your best creatively. So again, that contributes to your survival.
How do you know
the more creative you are?
Yeah, sorry to interject, but how do you know what someone's best is? Like, how does one person know this is my best that I'm doing?
Well, you don't need to know. Well, you do need. There is a way to know, but you don't need to know what your best is, because you're designed to be your best. But being your best, science has a word for that as well, actually, called homeostasis. What homeostasis is, it means the perfect functioning of the organism. So you are at your best when everything about you is operating perfectly or at its best. In other words, all of the organs of your body, your breathing, your heart rate, your digestion, all of the body is operating in the state of homeostasis where it's perfectly efficient, doing all of the things that it's designed to do. And mentally and emotionally, you're at your best when you feel your best. And that means when you're at your happiest, when you're feeling love, gratitude, excitement, energized, motivated, that's when you are at your best. And there's actually many artists and even athletes have described this place called being in the zone or being in the flow. Spirituality sometimes calls it enlightenment, but it's when they're, and people have described this state where it's almost effortless, their creativity and the results they are getting in their life. They are sure they're putting in effort, but it's not a struggle. There's a flow, and it's as if something from outside of them or some other place besides their own physical effort is creating for them, is bringing them this. So that's when you're at your best, when you're creative, when you're resourceful, and in a simple word, when you're feeling happy. The happier you feel, the better you are. And this is all biological. We're designed to be in a happy state. We're designed to feel good, and we're designed to get good results in our life. Because
yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that biologically, if we accept that, if we're designed to be the best that we can be, the next question is, has nature provided anything for us to enable this to happen? And that would make sense that it has. If our purpose is to be something, we must have some tools, resources, something that's given to us to enable this to happen. And we do. We've been biologically equipped with the most powerful computer and machine designed to try and to ensure that we're at our best so that we survive, which is our purpose, and that is our brain.
Yeah.
That's the function of the brain.
I agree with that.
To keep us at our best.
It's
a biological
right.
fact.
It totally is a biological fact. Now, the zone, you mentioned the zone, getting in the zone and having that be the point in mind or state of being that you can create the best work or output that you're able to put forth as a human. How, I've experienced that too. And I attribute this not necessarily as balancing all aspects in life in one homeostasis point in time, or feeling like I'm experiencing homeostasis in every aspect. I've experienced this in almost anything I've done, whether it's a project around the house and building something at the house, or work, profession, working on a spreadsheet, a presentation, training curriculum, articles, whatever I'm writing. What I've noticed is you don't experience that when you first start. So you don't have this state of flow or being in the zone when you're initializing something. It takes the effort to put forth. You have to have the effort to put forth to create the first wave of effort, right? So like if I'm mowing a lawn, I got to go get the lawnmower, fill it up with gas, go out to the grass, and I got to do a lap to feel out how things are progressing, how they work, how they function. But then at some point in that effort, whatever it is, it seems like you get a flow that, hey, I understand how this works. I'm going to focus on this. I'm going to focus on the micro aspects of this task or this effort I'm putting forth. And then at some point in the near future, after commencing in that activity and putting forth the effort, you start to somewhat automate it. You see, to me, that's the only word I can think of, but it seems to just become second nature, where you can maybe even listen to a podcast at the same time, or you can maybe contemplate things about your life and maybe innovate and use your left and right brain simultaneously. And that's where the creativity and the exploration of innovation in whatever effort you're putting forth, for me, comes out. Is that pretty much the same thing that you would call being in the zone?
Well, not quite, actually, because there's another way to look at it and another way to live your life. And that because we are actually designed to be in this state pretty well all of the time. There's only one exception to to being in the state which we'll talk about. But what actually happens is when you're using your brain the right way, you don't start off thinking, I need to do something, I need to get I don't really want to do it, but I need to get up the energy to do it, and then you know, as it starts, things get better. When you're actually properly living in this state, you're motivated to do everything at the right time and in the right way, because you have no expectation about when or if things need to be done. Because as I said earlier, if you're just taking that next step, then you don't mind, you know, you're going to where you end up is where you're going to end up, and it's going to be a good place. It's all about the place you're in at the moment. So you might, for instance, mowing the lawns, using your brain this way, you might just go out and start mowing the lawns. You don't think, oh, I need to mow the lawns and I'll get out there and I'll force myself. Everything happens spontaneously, and you put in the effort, but you do everything at the right time. I'll give you an example of this, actually. One of my businesses that I had, which again, I can't really go into too much detail about what it was for various reasons, but my partner and I set up a business, and it was doing pretty well. And we were managing it. It was based in New Zealand, but we were managing it from overseas when we left. And for probably 3 or 4 years, we talked about we should sell it. You know, it wasn't really something that was in harmony with what we particularly wanted to do. It didn't take us much time to run it, and it was giving us a good income. It wasn't setting the earth on fire, but for 3 or 4 years we were saying, oh, we should sell it, and you know, it's not in harmony with what we're doing, and we don't particularly enjoy it, even though it was a few hours a week, not a lot more. But we just kept saying, but we think we should, but it doesn't feel right. And instead of getting anxious and worried about where that business might go if we didn't, you know, maybe we should sell it now while it's still doing well. So this carried on for 3 or 4 years. And then one day I just woke up in the morning, 5:30, and I said to my partner, now's time to sell that business. And she said, yeah. And there was no particular reason why I suddenly felt that it was the right time to sell the business. It just felt the right time. But applying that principle that I'm talking about of using your brain in the right way, where you just go with what feels right as the next step without any struggle or effort or trying to figure out if it's right. Just if it feels right, you just have faith, if you like, you trust in your brain that it is the right time to do the right thing. So we put this business on the market, and within a couple of days I'd contacted a business broker, had a phone call with him back in New Zealand. He put it on the market within a week. Within the first 24 hours, we'd had 7 offers. The highest one was 25% more than the asking price, and the business settled in 2 weeks. It all just happened.
Yeah.
So, but if I'd struggled and thought, no, I need to sell this, and what's the next step, and get on and everything, I don't think I would have had that outcome. And the difference is, instead, we can talk a bit more about how the brain works, but there's a part of your brain that knows the right things that you should be doing at all times, and it'll bring the right circumstances to you, the right people, and it will get you to make the right decisions. It will motivate you, because its job is to get you to be the best that you can be in all times. But it's not your thinking part of your brain. And what, unfortunately, we've been led to believe by our education system and the way society is set up, is that we've got to force the outcome, or we've got to figure stuff out using the thinking part of our brain. But the thinking part of the brain is not the part that does all this stuff. It's not the part, it has a different role, which we can talk about. Its role is not to create your life for you. So
would you say it's the feeling part of your brain then?
No, it's not the feeling part either.
Well, what part is it?
Okay. Well, there's 4 parts to your brain. Okay. And I mentioned the state of being in the flow. And we talked about how what I just mentioned was there is a way to actually just make the right decision, do the right thing all of the time. I mean, this is the ideal state. I'm not saying that I'm perfect at this yet, although I'm working on it, and I'm helping others work on it. And it's, you know, we have everybody has these things we have to deal with that go on in our brain. There's reasons why it's not as easy as it sounds, but it is a lot easier than it sounds as well. But anyway, we've got 4 parts to our brain. Now, one part is the thinking part of our brain, and that's contained in, I call it, these are simplification of technical terms, obviously, but all of these parts have physical locations inside our head. And maybe I should just say before I explain the 4 parts of the brain is, I think if we realized how powerful our brain was, we would be thinking, wow, I need to find out about this thing, because our brain is the most powerful computer that's ever been built, if you like, that exists on the planet. It's far more powerful than any computer or any supercomputer. There was an experiment done a few years ago in Japan with the Fujitsu K supercomputer, which was the 4th most powerful supercomputer in the world at the time. And they got it to carry out one task that the human brain does in 1 second, this one task. And it took this enormously powerful supercomputer 40 minutes to do what the human brain can do in 1 second. That's just one task. And we do hundreds of thousands of things in our brain every second. So it's vastly more powerful than we realize. And it has the power to do what it's supposed to do, which is create our ideal life for us. But we need to use it in the right way. And we need to understand that firstly, that it is a machine. And it's like a motor car. If you have a motor car, you know it has a job to do, that if you want to go from where you are to somewhere else, the car is going to get you there in the most efficient, comfortable, reliable way if you do it the right way, if you use that car the right way, if you get in and you drive it right. But if you don't drive it right, it's not going to get you to where you want to go. You're going to have all sorts of problems. You're going to have to put in far more effort. You're going to be trying to figure it out. Whereas all you needed to do was learn how to drive it and then drive it properly. So we've been taught how to drive a car, but we've never been taught how to drive our brain.
Or maintaining your car too, and, you know, handling, you know, flat tires and figuring out how to fix repairs, right? Or perform repairs. But what are the 4 parts of the brain, and which part of your brain leads to, you know, the non-thinking decision-making attributes? Sure.
So the thinking part of the brain is called the neocortex, and that's on the top of the head. It's quite a large area. People have probably heard of this.
Yeah.
And what the thinking part brain does is that assembles all of the information that comes to you through your senses, your 5 senses, and also through your thoughts. It gathers all of that information and it stores it there. So it's like a big library or a database, you like, of all of your experiences, all of the information you've gathered and are gathering through your life. And it also is the part that's responsible for allowing us to communicate through language as well. So that's the thinking brain. It's like a big library. The second part of the brain, which is located just underneath our neocortex, is what I call our feeling brain, our emotional brain. And this generates emotions, good and bad. And the way it generates emotions is that it produces things called neurotransmitters, sometimes called hormones. We've heard of them like cortisol, oxytocin, some of these things that have the ability to give us the feelings that we have. And they can range from feeling bad, angry, stressed, frustrated, to feeling good, loving, happy, all of those things. The third part of our brain is the mechanical brain, or the survival brain. And this is located at the back of the head in the brain stem. And this is the part that's responsible for all of our unconscious, non-thinking functions, like our heartbeat and our breathing, and all of these things that we do just mechanically that enable us to survive. That's what that part of the brain's job is to do, is to make sure we survive. And it also has one other very important function, the survival brain, and that is to make sure we react to any immediate danger or threat that comes our way. So, of course, there's the famous story about in prehistoric times, the lion comes running out, you at the jungle.
Yeah.
Your survival brain activates your fight, flight, or freeze survival instinct, and you react against that danger. So you run away from the threat, or you stand and fight, or you shout out for help, whatever it is. And we all know when we're faced an immediate danger that we just do react. We're not thinking. We're not using our thinking brain. We're feeling fearful, but we're just reacting to a danger. So that's the third part of the brain.
I got to interject on that. I feel like today in today's media and political divisiveness and creating fear and anxiety with world events, I feel like everything we read and hear is targeting that part of our brain.
You're onto it. Exactly. That's a key point. And there's a very specific reason for that, because, which we'll talk about, but what that activates is something called the sympathetic nervous system when you're in a fearful state. And what people don't realize is that when you're in a fearful state, it changes the way your brain is supposed to operate, and it gets you to see and do things in a way that are very and not designed to help you, put it that way. And it's all a physical, biological thing. So we can certainly talk about how and why the media, you know, and I think, without sounding like a conspiracy theorist, there's a definite conscious, it's intentional to create the state in people because of the effect it has on people.
Absolutely.
You know, one of the effect, when you activate this part of your brain, one of the things that it does is that it makes you very open. If you think about it's the most primitive part of your brain. So it opens up all of your most primitive instincts, which are all survival instincts. One of them is being much more amenable or suggestive or obedient to authority. And that's really good when you're in a dangerous situation, immediate danger, because if you're in a group, you need someone else to tell you what to do. You need some leadership to fight off a danger. If there's a lion running at the village, you need someone to stand up and say, everybody, this is what we've got to do, and everybody has to do it. So your brain automatically becomes much more open to being instructed by someone else.
Wow.
And this is a biological thing. And this is why you see people do things, well, a couple of things. You see people do irrational things and say, why are they doing that? It's because they've literally had their brain rewired to believe what someone we respect authority much more, quote unquote, without thinking, without evaluating. We just accept what we're told as being the truth by someone who appears to be an authority. And of course, the military use this. This is how you create obedience, is through fear. Because you need to get people in an army or in a military situation to do things they would never otherwise do. They need to obey orders, and those orders might go against all of their natural feeling. They might be told to kill somebody. Yeah. So the only way you can get people to operate with this level of obedience and this level of non-awareness, if you like, is by activating their sympathetic nervous system, which is done through fear.
I think this is amazing, because everything that's happening today is, I think, consciously and scientifically or whatever calculated messages, situations that are being hijacked, leveraged, or used to go and tap into this part of your brain. And it's also, I look at it as, it is a means and a mechanism that they are using, whoever they is, you know, fill in the blank, but anything that you hear and read that gives you these type of, you know, fight, flight, or freeze reactions, it's creating a need for a leader and helping people believe that that leader has the solutions and is appropriately authoritated to go and say, hey, a lion is chasing us, you guys need to run. And so people subconsciously believe that, and they empower this proverbial leader based upon this hijacking of the whatever you call it, the sensitivity center or whatever. I think that is exactly what's happening today. And it's
Absolutely
crazy. It is crazy, because honestly, Liam, I don't watch news that much. I actually don't watch TV that often at all. I mean, I'll watch a few movies here and there with my kids, but I don't have a program I sit down and watch. I don't have like a show I have to go watch. I don't. Occasionally I'll turn on some podcasts that are related to current affairs, politics in the US, stuff like that. And I just recently turned it back on, and I started to get those fight, flight, freeze feelings, and I had to turn it off. And I don't want to put my head in the sand either. I don't want to become immune to what's happening in the world around me, because for all I know, a riot the size of Phoenix, where I live, is working its way towards my house, and I need to know that so I can get in my car and drive away with my family, right? But where's the balance? Like, how do I balance the truth and information with the attack on my freeze, flight, or no,
Flight, freeze.
fight,
Well,
flight, freeze.
The reality is, if you're in a state of any anxiety whatsoever, you can never know the truth. You can never, you're talking about finding a balance of what you need to know and what you should know. You will never find what you need to know and should know when you're in that state. Because another thing your brain actually does when it activates the sympathetic nervous system by when you feel anxiety or fear, because remember, what's happening is your emotional brain is activating that state, that feeling of anxiety. And that's like the signal from the emotional brain that you're facing danger, which means you need to go into this state. But when you do that, one of the things that happens, again, coming back to the lion analogy, is if a lion is running at you in the jungle, one of the functions that your brain must make sure that you do is that you take any resource from anywhere else and focus it solely on the immediate threat. So part of that, several things happen. One of them is you have to become totally focused on everything that's the problem, everything that's negative. Your brain literally is looking for and can only see what is negative, because that's what its job is to do. It's like, where is the danger? Yes, there's a lion there. I need to focus 100% on all of the danger, because my brain is telling me that I'm in a dangerous situation. Are there any other dangers? Aha, is there something else in the grass? Do I hear another noise? So your brain is going around. Its job is to go around and make sure it doesn't overlook any single danger, any single threat. So it's only focused on the negative.
That is crazy. That's crazy, because
it's insane, Liam, that we've never been taught this stuff.
Honestly, I keep telling my friends recently, even more so than in the past, that I feel like society's losing their minds. And you just articulated what I observe happening, which is people are doing exactly what you just said. They are reacting in almost a incoherent subconscious manner as a result of fear or whatever, and they're looking for the negative. I mean, they're finding it. You can tell them that you have a bouquet of flowers, and these flowers are beautiful, and they, here's this perfect bouquet, and they will find the fact that there's too many leaves on the stem, or there's one that has a tiny little dead spot, or the water's not sufficiently full in the vase. They will find it, and they will look right past the positive. That's what's happening today.
And the tragedy is they don't realize it's their brain that's doing this for them. And it's not a question of motivation and not wanting to only see negative things. People want to feel happy and good, but their brain is not allowing them to do that, because in that state, that's not the function, what their brain is out to do. Their brain is out to get you out of danger, because what you've literally done is you've tricked your brain, if you like, or moved it into a state to say you're surrounded by an immediate danger. That's the signal your brain is giving the rest of you, is that you're surrounded by it. So when you hear some negativity, when you hear about, there's a war going on and you could die from this problem, or whatever it is, or that this war might turn into World War III, or whatever it is, all of those things, you're feeding these ideas into your brain, which are saying that means there's an immediate threat to your survival. And of course it isn't. But here's the other thing about what's really going on with your brain as well, because imagine again, because this fight, flight, freeze mechanism, this is absolutely perfect for an immediate threat to your survival. You don't want to be thinking. Your brain is designed to make sure you don't think, because if a lion's running at you, and it's designed to make sure you don't see anything other than the negative, because if a lion's running at you, the last thing your brain should be doing is saying to you, hey, look at the lovely, rose. Don't look at the thorns. Look at the lovely rose. Look at the beautiful flowers that are surrounding us. Oh, isn't the sunshine coming through the trees beautiful today? Your brain blocks you out from seeing all of that. It has to. If you thought that when the lion's coming at you, or if you thought, now this is interesting, I wonder what this means. Perhaps it is a threat, but let's come up with a strategic plan, evaluate all of the options on how we might deal with this particular issue, and come up with a bit of a plan. You'd be dead if you thought all of that.
Totally.
Your brain cannot allow you to do that for you to survive.
What's the answer?
So this is the answer.
How do we get ourselves out of this?
Is to first understand that the sole purpose of fear is to get you out of an immediate threat, immediate danger. And that the way you're supposed to live is through the fourth part of your brain, which is actually your creative part. And this is the part, I call it the creative brain. There's a couple of places. One's called the pineal gland, another's the basal forebrain, where this activity primarily goes on. And this is the part of the brain that science has only relatively recently discovered and started to accept. But this is the part of your brain that gives you your aha moments, your intuition about things, your gut feelings about things. It also gives you your creativity, as we just mentioned. And it also gives you your motivation to actually do things and to do the right things. And that's actually the part of your brain that's supposed to opt to govern the way you live your life so that you make the right decisions, you come up with the right ideas. Now, of course, people say, well, I'm not creative, other people are. Everybody's creative about their own life. Doesn't mean that they don't need to be a great painter, but they can create their own life. But this part of the brain doesn't rely on your thinking. It's not your thinking brain. This is where you get coincidences, chance events. People come along, whether in business or in person, and you think, well, I wonder how I met them. I wonder how this happened. You talk about when I came out of my old life into my new life. That is what happened. New people came along and just showed up and said, oh, hi, do you want to do this? Or you could do this, or we could do this, or I got ideas. And people say, well, oh, no, it's just a fluke or luck. Your brain is far more powerful than you realize. There is no such thing as luck in your life. These things are designed by this infinite part of your brain, which is accessed through the creative part of your brain. But that part doesn't work when you're in fear, because when you're in fear, that part is useless. You're not supposed to be creative, have higher awareness, see the big picture of things, come up with new ideas and all of that when you're faced with an immediate danger. It's completely useless. So all of the energy, all of the resources physically and in everything else, not only they're blocked off, is that part of your brain blocked off, but all of those physical resources go to ensuring that you can fight off this immediate threat, this immediate danger.
Wow.
So people don't realize this, that it's like a machine. You're using your brain. It doesn't matter how motivated you are and how much you say, well, I need to stay informed of what's going on in the world. And, it doesn't matter how much you justify using your brain the wrong way. You're still going to get the wrong results because you could stand in front of your car and say, well, but, it should work this way. It's not the way it works. Sorry.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, and kind of fill in the blanks or tell me where I'm wrong here, but I think step one is to evaluate what is causing negativity, fear, anxiety in your life. And those sources need to be identified and eliminated. And then you need to get rid of this overstimulation of that part of your brain so that you can focus on or be able to access this fourth part of your brain. Is that a good summary?
I have a coaching program called Rebalance Your Brain for Success, and I go through all the steps to do this. This is what incorporates neurostate rebalancing as well. But the first step, which is a step really just before that, is you've got to start realizing and understanding this is how your brain machine works. Because it's a bit like, as I say, with a car, you wouldn't dream of using it the wrong way once you know how it works. And if someone came along and said, oh, you need to do it differently, you'd go, that's mad. I'm not going to do it like that. It's not the way it's designed to work. So when you know that, then you move on to the step, as you say, is to realize you have only one enemy in life, and that is fear. Anything that makes you feel bad is going to activate your sympathetic nervous system. It's going to shift or block your awareness of what's really going on in your life. And it's going to block your ability not only to create your ideal life, but to solve any problems you've got in your life. It's not the part of your, you can't, and this is what people do. They try and solve their problems by thinking about it, getting stressed, getting worried, focused, saying, I'm determined, I'm motivated, I'm going to force myself to, I'll do anything. And they gather more information and they set their goals and they struggle and get stressed. You can never solve the problem. And I found this in my earlier life. You just create more problems for yourself. When that happens, you make wrong decisions. Things don't go well. You can't do it.
I have to ask, and you made me think of this, but for fear of offending a ton of listeners, I think it needs to be talked about, though. I think, and you tell me your opinion on this, but I think social media is contributing to this.
Anything that makes you feel bad is contributing to it.
Yeah.
But, marketers and advertisers have known for decades, if you want people to, they've actually done research. When people are happy, they buy less stuff. And one of the major keys to getting people to buy something is to make them feel bad. If you look, it's really interesting to analyze marketing and advertising. How much of it is trying to make you feel bad and say, you feel bad because you don't have what I'm offering. But if you have what I'm offering, then you'll feel good. So people get in a state of, oh, I really want that and I need that for me to be happy. And it's all preying on this idea of keeping you in this sad state of, oh, I can't be happy because I don't have that. Or it's all manipulation.
Wow.
Whereas it just goes through everything. But you have to realize that the only enemy you have in life, if we have an enemy, is fear. It's a little bit like hydrochloric acid. If someone came along and said, here's a glass of hydrochloric acid, you drink that and I'll give you $1 million, $10 million. You're not going to drink it. Why aren't you going to drink it? Because if I put that into my body, it's going to harm me. And it's the same with mental stuff, mental input. It doesn't matter what it is. If it's going to make me feel bad, it's going to harm me. It's going to prevent me from solving any problems I have, prevent me from stopping me making more problems, and it's going to prevent me from living the life that I'm supposed to live, which is feeling good, being happy. And people say, well, that's being selfish. When are you're most generous to other people? When are you're the best contributors to society? Not when you're feeling bad, but when you're feeling good. That's when you create and give the most. So this is a biological purpose, not just for you to feel good and be at your best, but if you want to help the rest of the world, that's what you're supposed to do as well. That's the only way you can.
I love it. I love everything about it because you're nailing exactly what is going on in our world. And it is in large part pixels on screens that is contributing to all of this. And everyone I know has a problem with pixels on screens. They stare at a screen too much, they absorb content, and it tends to be negative. It tends to make them feel bad about themselves, especially like all the imagery in social media, the marketing of media itself, like news outlets and media, and over stimulating that part of your brain that makes you feel useless, worthy or unworthy, fearful, I need to go and do something different, world's falling apart mentalities. And then you go and combine that with social media where you have the illusions of perfection constantly being thrown at your face. Like all these people are so happy and great and successful and beautiful. And I'm not that. How am I going to measure up to that? So you're constantly belittling yourself, whether you know it or not.
That's absolutely, and that's what I'm saying. It's about, what am I putting in my brain? Is it making me feel good or not? Because, I watch videos online, but the sort of videos I like watching are Hogan's Heroes. I don't know if you've heard of that.
I have, yeah.
Comedies.
Positive stuff that makes you feel good.
Well, yeah, and I love science fiction as well. And I don't watch I haven't watched the news in years, ever. I'm happy to. It's a bit like any technology. It's not the technology; it's how it's used. I mean, electricity can kill you, but it can also, cook food. So
Right.
it's not about the technology, but it's about the way we use it. But people have to be really mindful of what is something activating on a purely scientific, mechanical, machine state level. Am I acting my sympathetic nervous system? Because if I am, I'm not going to be able to see the truth.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to effectively deal with things in a way that gives me a good life. Doesn't matter how motivated or how much I struggle. It's just not going to happen.
Agree. It won't. And clearly we're seeing that as a big problem in the world and society today. Liam, how would you define truth?
Truth is what is. Truth is what is. And people say, the other interesting thing is a lot of people say their first reaction when they hear all of this, well, people have two reactions. One is, yes, that makes total sense, and I wish I'd known about it before, and I wish somebody had told me how the machine of my brain works and how to use it properly. But the other reaction is, no, that's not right. Doesn't sound right. It's not as easy as that. And they come up with all sorts of different reasons why this wouldn't work for them. But the interesting thing is the reason you come up with reasons why it won't work for you, why anything won't work for you, in other words, why you don't think it's the truth, is because that's what your brain is telling you. When you're in this anxious state, your brain is not interested in the truth. Well, it is, but it's not designed to show you the truth. It's designed to get you to fix an immediate problem. And one of the easiest ways to fix an immediate problem, by fixing an immediate problem, what the brain is really trying to do is get you out of danger, get you out of a state of danger. And when you don't have a state of danger, but it thinks you do, it's also going to get you to do something to get out of an imaginary danger. So a good example is when you're arguing with someone. And, everyone's been in the situation where you're arguing with someone, say your husband or your wife. In my relationship coaching, I encounter this quite a lot. People are struggling in their relationship because they're arguing all the time. And people say, I shouted at them and I said something that I should never have said. Why did I do that? Because it didn't make the situation any better. And all of the talking and arguing, it's not making our relationship any better. But I still said that hurtful thing. Well, the reason you did it was because in a fearful, anxious state, your brain, having activated your sympathetic nervous system, remember what it's looking for, or what it's thinking is you're in a state of danger here, a threat to your survival. So in other words, arguing with your husband or your wife means that they might leave you and you might have to get divorced and have a horrible, lonely life. That's what your brain is processing. So what can you do right now to get out of that danger? Well, the best thing you can do is to shout back, is to react, because it makes you feel better for an instant. It makes you feel more in control. So that's an example of your being in a reactionary state. Your brain is trying to make you feel better for an instant, but that part of your brain has no sense of consequences. It's just trying to make you feel better for an instant. So it's always going to make things worse, usually, and that's the problem with social media and all those things as well. People aren't feeling good, so they go to social media and they watch something completely either meaningless or something that doesn't make them feel any better. And it's their brain just constantly trying to make you feel a bit better for an instant, and it never works. And it becomes addictive. And that's what all addictions are, is your brain just trying to make you feel better by doing something that's not good for you, but just makes you feel better for an instant or a short period of time.
I feel like this is, I feel like this entire concept is something that is so simple, but yet seemingly so underutilized or unattainable by the masses, because people don't understand how simple it is to retrain and change your brain and eliminate the negativity that's affecting and minimizing and marginalizing your ability to use your pineal gland and your creative intuition type part of your brain, your fourth dimension, as we were talking about, or the fourth part of your brain. But it's so simple. I mean, it's not complex. And
That's the thing.
this can
Yeah.
be a massive game changer for anyone listening, for following your advice. If you just simply understand what's happening and where the negativity is coming from.
And you know, the funny part about it, well, not the funny part, the interesting part about it, we've actually been taught this stuff, or we've been told how to do it, but nobody's interpreted it the right way. You know, a lot of people in the world are Christians,
Mm.
and they believe what's in the Bible. The Bible teaches you how to use your brain. It says all this stuff. It says more than 360 times in the Bible, someone counted, it says, be not afraid, have faith, don't be afraid. And it's not saying be not afraid because, well, that's just a nice idea. It's because this is the instruction on how to run your life. Fear is not there. You're not supposed to be afraid. Make sure you're not afraid. It also says, give no thought for tomorrow will take care of itself. Be not anxious about the future. Now, that's very different to sitting down and writing your goals list and saying, well, I've got to achieve all these things. And this is the manual. It's not just a fancy idea. This is how your brain works on a mechanical, biological level. It's how you're designed to live. And the tragedy is we're not taught any of this stuff because, as you say, just like driving a car, it's not that complicated. You don't need to know how about all the wires and what all the bits and pieces do inside in a car engine or a car. You just need to know how to do a few things right. And you go, well, of course, that's the way I drive it. And that's how I get. And then the machine will do what it's supposed to do.
Have you looked into other religions besides Christianity to come up with a common link in this type of, fear not, avoid fear, don't care for tomorrow because it will happen? Have you looked into other religions and had that same observation?
Well, not in as great detail. I was brought up a Christian, so I was very involved in understanding Christianity, and I guess Christianity is the main religion where the people that I work with, it's part of our culture, isn't it? So I haven't done as much research into other religions, but the little bit I have done has certainly emphasized this central role of faith and belief. And faith and belief is the opposite to fear. Fear means you don't believe. And unfortunately, people think, well, I can force myself to believe. I can force myself to have faith. But this is why prayer doesn't work for people, because they're in a fearful state. They're asking for something from a place of fear, worry, and anxiety, and they're asking for something that they think will take them out of that state. Whereas what they don't realize is that if you're in that state when you're praying, you're not able to pray for the right things. Your awareness is literally not showing you what you should want. And not only that, but you're not allowing those things to come to you because they come to you through the creative part of your brain. And you can't activate that. You don't have access to that when you're in a state of fear. So fear is that's the using your brain the wrong way. It's just not doing it right, and you're just never going to get anywhere. And I for years tried to make things happen, and I went to seminars all around the world. I read books. I did all sorts of courses and tapes and anything I could think of to try and find the solution to feeling in control of my life and making it work properly. And none of those things really worked. And of course, they didn't work long term because I lost everything. And when I went to the seminars and I looked at the other people there, I thought, is this working for them? Are all the people here much happier and more successful from what we're learning here? And it just struck me that they weren't. And it's all because we've not been taught that the core, you don't actually need any of that stuff. What you need to realize is why do you need a technique when you've got all of it in here already? This infinite machine, this computer has got all the answers. It's got all the techniques. It's got all the methods for you. So you don't need it to know anything else other than just allowing it to do its job.
You made me think of something.
I think.
Yeah, I agree. And I was raised Christian as well. And one of the things I've noticed without giving like certain names or whatnot, but I have noticed in some religions, there is a inherent perfection idea or adherence to certain norms, expectations, or requirements to obtain a certain level of acceptance in God's eyes. And sometimes that's used to get you to behave, act, and do certain things. And there seems to be a mix of the social aspect of perfectionism and the illusions of success, or, keeping up with the Joneses type of mentality where, hey, that family or that person is doing it this way and they're really successful and happy and they're doing a great job and they're doing all of this, that I should be doing in this religion. Therefore, I feel bad, because I'm just not as perfect as them, or I mess up, or I'm not doing X, Y, and Z how I should according to this religion. And I wonder if there's a mix of this negativity in religion that, without knowing it, is also tapping the same segment of your brain. Would you say there's any truth to that?
Yes, because unfortunately, excuse me, religion, the reality, and again, without trying to step on anyone's toes here, but the reality about most religions is they have been hijacked by power and control. And the way you establish power and control is you create a hierarchy and you tell people what they need to do, and if they don't do it, then something bad is going to happen to them. So this keeps people in a state of fear, and it keeps people in a state of lack of awareness of who they actually are. Because, as I say, in the Bible, it tells us how you're supposed to use your brain, but it doesn't necessarily, and that should be enough, but it doesn't explain why it works that way. And I think if we understood why it worked that way, then we'd probably do it a lot more. But you tap on something, if I could just say something, something that occurred to me from what you were saying, is this whole thing of comparing ourselves to other people and thinking, well, they're really successful and they've got that, and therefore maybe I don't have it, but if I did, then I'd be really, I'd be happy and like they seem to be. So I need to have more, or in other words, I need to compare myself to other people. But here's something really interesting that we don't realize as well about who we are. And that is, not only do we have this brain that's this perfect machine designed to bring out the best of who you are, we don't realize how unique we actually are. The human body, we each have approximately 75 trillion cells in our body. And in each of those cells, we have something called DNA, which I'm sure you've heard of. I'm sure your listeners have heard of.
Yeah.
But what DNA actually is, I mean, DNA is incredible. In every cell of your body, it's like a strand of molecules of information. And if you were to stretch out a strand, it would be 4 feet long in one cell. 4 feet long. That's how long. That's how big it is.
And
we've got
have
75 trillion cells.
Yeah, that's insane.
If you were to, that's 50 million miles of DNA stretched out. That's from here to Mars. That's how much DNA you've got in your body. And what is your DNA? It contains approximately 250 million pieces of information about you. It is your blueprint for who you are. Now, you don't know what 250 million things about yourself. Your creative brain does. And your creative brain's job is to express and bring out the best of these 250 million pieces of information about you. Now, those 250 million pieces of information, they've got nothing whatsoever to do with anybody else. And if you really knew that there was a part of you that could make you absolutely perfect, that knew 250 million different ways about what was exactly right for you, and it would bring it to you if you knew how to use it the right way, you wouldn't be out there comparing yourself to other people. You wouldn't be trying to say, well, maybe I should, and trying to figure stuff out about what you needed. You would just trust and know that you are perfect, and that when you're feeling good, when you're in the state, you are being the perfect expression of yourself. And if you ever think, oh, there's this part of me that's not perfect, or I don't like this about me, or I want to change this about me, then you would realize you're operating from your limited awareness. You're not operating from your creative self, where you would see the perfection of you and the perfection of your life, and the perfection of the world that you live in, if you see any limitation or if you see any imperfection, that's because you're operating from your sympathetic nervous system, the part of your brain that can't see the perfection, that can see only the problems. So again, this is where awareness comes in, and how you get to see the truth. You see the truth about yourself when you're in this creative state. And that just takes away so much, when you understand that, so much of the worry and stress, and you one of the things you find is your taste and appetite for anything that doesn't make you feel good just falls away. As I say, I don't watch the news, and the less I watch the news, the more I realize it's completely irrelevant to my life. It's not. If something comes along and I need to deal with it, well, I'll need to deal with it there and then. But it's like, and people say, well, that's being unrealistic. No, it's not. It's unrealistic when you're living from a fear state, because you're thinking, I'm all these problems in the world, I need to fix them for me to be happy. That's being unrealistic.
Yeah. I think another way to articulate all of this is we are being mind controlled on a grand scale and we don't even know it.
Absolutely.
Because this is intentional. This is designed to hit the fear part of your brain, to get you to conform, to behave, to spend, to act however they would like you, whoever it is that's inventing these fear constructs. But as soon as you break away from all of that and you step out of this umbrella of fear, you're no longer tethered to that addiction, or you're no longer mind controlled, and you're able to freely explore your creative side, your feelings, your gut feelings, your inherent desires and passions in life. And when you do that and you align yourself to those, great things happen. In fact, let's share a couple stories. I have one, and I'm sure you do with some of your, clients and people you've worked with and seen make these shifts. But I have a cousin who, he's been exploring nature way more lately in his life. He's older, right? He's older than I am. I don't even know his age exactly, but he loves to go outdoors, and especially by himself, and climb mountains and go to cliffs, sit on the cliff, overlook the sunset, take some amazing pictures, and also get some physical, athleticism, kind of endurance built up, and use your brain to create those natural chemicals that you need, but also enjoy the peace and harmony that nature has while unplugging from everything that the world is distracting us with. And he's been doing it way more. Like, I'm talking, every other weekend type thing. He looks forward to it now. And he just called me the other day, and he told me that he's starting a company around this passion. And it is a convergence of releasing of the fear the world is giving you and embracing spirituality, individualism, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, that you can cultivate by getting out in nature and experiencing what nature can naturally provide for you. And I told him right away, I said, you are going to succeed beyond any measure, because you have put aside these norms and expectations that society has placed upon you. And this fear is no longer there with you, and you have aligned something that so many people need, and you're passionate about it, and it's healed you. And you're now going to have this company that's going to empower many other people to go and have that same experience. I said, you're going to succeed beyond your wildest dreams. And that's what we're talking about here. As soon as you can do this, and as soon as you can put aside the negativity and the fear, these type of things happen with everyone.
Absolutely. That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
And, you mentioned nature, living on a boat, I'm surrounded by nature all the time. And it's something I think more of us need to do, because which is be around nature. And just go out, talking to your listeners here, just go out into a park or go outside, get away from the computer screen, and sit and watch a bird for 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes, not a year or half an hour. Don't worry, just 5 minutes, you can do it. And what you notice about a bird or nature is that everything is perfect. There's not struggle and stress and problems. There's life, there's the cycle of life and death. But you watch a bird in its natural environment. If it needs and wants some food, it finds some food. It just operates on a perfect level. And it's the same with all of nature. And all of these ideas that we've created about all the problems in nature, again, they're just coming from a limited awareness place, which just isn't reality. We live in an infinite world. We live in an infinite universe. So it's really important one of the ways that you can start to see these things is you need to start looking and becoming aware that all of these things that are shutting your brain down are just not true. And it's not that hard to start to see the truth about the way things actually are. And the reason your cousin is doing that, of course, who knows what success looks like for him? Because success only really means one thing. It's the one reason we're all chasing whatever we're chasing, is we want to feel good. That's it. That's what success is. And it's unique for every person. And we know when we see someone who's feeling good, that's when we say they're successful. It's not the amount of money they have or the amount of stuff going on in their life. And so when people trust that and realize that I have this brain, this machine that's designed to make me successful, which is designed to make me feel perfectly happy and fulfilled in what I'm doing, instead of trying to decide in advance what that looks like, just allow it to happen. Just focus on staying in that state. Because remember, it's not your thinking brain that is going to create this for you, that even knows what you want. Your creative brain, that's its job. So that's when you can just take each step without worrying about consequences, without thinking, well, should I do this or shouldn't I do it? You don't give it any thought other than, does this feel right to do right now? And that's one way you stop making the wrong decision, is saying, I don't need to do this. You know, how many times do we get in a relationship with somebody and we say, oh, this doesn't quite feel right, but we've come this far and other people are going to think that I'm a failure if I give up now. I'm going to think that I'm a failure if I give up now. And we've got problems, sure, but everyone has problems. Relationships are supposed to be difficult. You're supposed to work on your relationship. And whatever our problems are, I'm going to overcome them. And then I'll feel that I've really achieved and overcome an enormous obstacle in my life. And I'll feel good then. But there's and then you try and do that. And what happens? It just becomes a constant struggle.
Yeah.
But you still think, well, I need to overcome it. That's not the way we're designed to live. We're not supposed to live with problems, because here's another interesting logical conclusion you come to when you understand the brain and you understand our physical experience, is that problems have no benefit to us. Problems make you feel bad. They make you feel stressed. And when you feel stressed, you not only block this creative part of your brain, you damage your own body. You don't operate in homeostasis in this with all your organs. It makes you weaker. It contributes to disease and your lack of health. You know, you get heart problems or whatever it might be, high blood pressure, etc. There's no benefit, actually, if you really look at it from a creative brain perspective, there's no benefit in problems. And people sometimes say, but you learn from your problems. Yes, but there's better ways to learn. If learning through problems was the only way of doing it, then we would all be constantly surrounded by problems. But that's not what we want, and that's not the way we're designed to be. There are much better ways to learn things than fighting and overcoming problems. And the best way to learn something is to realize that your brain will bring you everything you need to know at the right time if you let it.
Yeah. I think this has been profound. I think this is amazing. I think you are right on the money with what is contributing to our negativity, minimizing our ability to succeed. When I was younger, success meant something different to me, probably more like a monetary type of benchmark. And then titles, maybe achievement, education wise. But now, not because of this conversation, but because I align with what you're saying and how you have come to this realization through your NSR, work, that I think success is when you are in a homeostasis mindset and you're comfortable with where you're at and excited about what you're doing, regardless of titles, education, money in your bank, anything like that. And I think that is success. And that's what I love about this show, is because there's so many different views on success. Some people love having a vision board and they want to have a Ferrari on it or $2 million in a bank account. And okay, that's their version of success. But I think
they don't actually want that. What they want is what they think it will give them.
Right.
Which is to feel good.
And
so everybody wants the same thing. Everyone has the same definition of success, which is feeling good. We just have different ways that we think will get us to feeling good.
Agree. Well, hey, listen, this has been
still
really
the same goal.
It is the same goal. I really enjoyed talking to you, Liam. I think you have a great program. Where can people learn more about you, buy your book, or hire you for your NSR work? Put your sites out there.
Okay, well, everything's on my website, which is just my name, liamnaden.com. I've got a couple of podcasts there. One's about marriage and relationships, because I still do a lot of coaching and I have programs to help people heal their marriage and also deal with other aspects of relationships, such as getting past a breakup. And then the other podcast I have is called Using Your Brain for Success. And I go into more detail about how your brain works and why you need to use it the right way. Yeah. And I have a coaching program called Rebalance Your Brain for Success, where I teach people about neurostate rebalancing, which is really just a way, it's a process. It's not you don't need to do hypnosis and affirmations and spend lots of hours on reworking on your subconscious. It's nothing like that. It's just a process to get your brain to identify the difference between what's a real threat, a real danger, and an imaginary threat, an imaginary danger. And when your brain can recognize the difference, it's not going to make you feel bad about all this, about anything other than the lion coming at you from the jungle, because that is its original function. That's what it's supposed to do. So that's the place you need to get back to. You don't want to get rid of all your fear, but you need to get rid of any fear that is not actually going to result in harm to you right here, right now. Your brain can deal with that, but it can't deal with your problems. That part of your brain can deal with an immediate fear, but it can't deal with your problems. So that's what neurostate rebalancing does, is to, without having to do what I did, which is actually go through losing everything to figure out how to start thinking, or not thinking. It's not about thinking. Sorry to use that word, but using my brain differently. You don't have to go through that. There's a different. That's why I've created neurostate rebalancing.
I love it. This has been great. I mean, I have so much more I could talk to you about, but I want to be respectful of your time and make sure that I don't take like 5 hours of your time. But there is so much more we could talk about with this, because it impacts so much. It impacts everything in our life. And so that's why it's so important to really understand what's happening around us, where our thoughts and our goals and dreams are really coming from, and what part of the brain is helping shape that, and what part of the brain are we using to achieve that. So thank you very much, Liam. This has been great.
Oh, thank you, Trent. It's been great.
Yeah. Enjoy the yacht out there in wine country in France. I'm super jealous. I'm sure you're tasting some fabulous wine and enjoying some great
I don't
food.
Well, that's another long, funny story.
Yeah, that makes two of us. So yeah, I think you're probably really enjoying it. And either way, it's a beautiful part of the world. So thank you again. Yeah. Really appreciate it. Let's stay in touch.
Thank you. That'd be great. Would love to. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for tuning into today's episode. I greatly appreciate your support. If this show is helpful to you and you're learning and you're growing through this amazing content that I'm capturing, then please go ahead to Spotify, to YouTube, and all the other channels and subscribe. Please provide a rating or a comment or two, and then also share with your friends if you could. I would appreciate it. It helps this show continue to grow, and it helps me be able to attract some truly amazing guests that can come on and give us some great insight, great knowledge, and wisdom that all of us can learn from. Thank you for being a supporter. Thank you for being a listener. I appreciate you, and I appreciate all that you do. Thank you.